All right. So every once in a while, as we're waiting for game day tomorrow, by the way, there's just some slow news stuff. We talk about injuries. We can talk about some moves the Lions made. We can talk about some X's and O's, and we've done all that stuff. And so today I'm going to talk about way too early. Found an article on Lions Wire via USA Today where it talked about 10 guys. So as you're watching college football today, let's look at these guys and say, all right, because it's a little bit different than years past. The Lions aren't going to be sitting there with a top 10 pick, not a top 5 pick. It is going to simply be ooh, who are we going to have to look at later in the first round? So here are some names for you. I'm going to go through some quick. I'm going to tell you the ones that stand out to me, the ones that are more fun to watch, all that kind of stuff, and we'll get going with this. All right. Terrion Arnold, cornerback, Alabama. As you may or may not know, another big name from Alabama is Kool-Aid McKinstry. But as it says in this article, Terrion Arnold may have actually been the better corner so far for Alabama this year. He's a solid player. We know Alabama produces really good talent, and I think just another solid corner would be helpful for the Detroit Lions. The next one is probably not as exciting for everyone. It's an offensive lineman, Graham Barton out of Duke. He began his career at Duke as a center before kicking outside to left tackle. His best path, obviously, should be guard. And I think it's one of those things where you have to make the decision if you're the Detroit Lions. This is an interesting thought to me. Do you sign Jonah Jackson to big money long term? Or do you let him go? I know I hate saying this. Do you let him go? Do you draft a replacement at guard? And do you get what will clearly be a third round compensatory pick for him going forward? Um, that's one of those things that I would absolutely look at. So yes, I think that's absolutely there. Brandon Dorlus, I don't know a ton about him. He's kind of a pass rushing tweener, as they like to say. That very much fits the bill, but we already have Pascal in that role. He has been hurt a bunch, so we'll have to see what that looks like. I personally would rather get more like of a pure edge guy. If I'm going to be the Lions, I'd rather want a guy that can just straight rush the passer, not did I say pastor? Not one of these guys who can kind of do it all. All right, now we start getting into the fun names. First, you have Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. He's good. Like we know that he's 6'4". He works effectively out of his slot and outside. These now are players where it's like, all right, JMO isn't going to be our number one outside receiver. We don't see him doing that, so we need to go somewhere else with it. He's one of the guys that can do that. And then we have the next guy, Romeo Dunze. Personally, I like this a little bit more. He's shown to be very good, and he has been used heavily at Washington, and absolutely a proven talent. Also, you see here that he's been clocked at a 4.34 40 while being 6'3", 215 pounds. He has strong hands. He runs good enough routes. Like this is a guy that could end up being one of those just perfect big outside receiver type, kind of like T. Higgins, kind of like a Nico Collins, kind of like these guys that are starting to pop around the league that consistently will get you 60 to 70 catches, consistently get you over 1,000 yards, and just allow your offense to do a lot of things because you don't have to scheme anything crazy up for them. They're just big and strong enough to go and make plays. All right, this next one is very interesting to me. It's Chop Robinson. This is a guy who a lot of people thought was going to be an early first round pick. He just hasn't played that well this year. He hasn't played that well this year. And this is like the pass rusher that I would love to have where it's like, all right, you want to double team Hutch? Go get him, Chop. And if he's still there, this would be huge. And I say this because I am a firm believer that James Franklin, he is what he is. And that's the coach at Penn State. And what he is, and same with Manny Diaz, who's the defensive coordinator there. They are good, not great coaches. They are coaches that have good, an extremely talented team, but they don't know how to utilize that talent well. So it would make sense that as Chop Robinson is now enemy number one for opposing offenses, that he's not having a good year because he has coaches that don't know how to put him in the right way to win. I think it's that simple. All right, let's keep going. All right, another a defensive tackle, Tavondre Sweat. This one's interesting to me because he is massive. All right. He's quick and he shouldn't be as quick as he is at that weight. He just shouldn't. He's massive human being. So you put him in there and you keep saying to McNeil, hey, Aleem McNeil, right now it's like, hey, play the run. All right. But you also sometimes want you to rush the passer and stuff like that. It's like, all right, put this big man next to him. All right. Depending on how some of our players develop. All right. But you put him next to him and says, all right, go get the passer. And you can see what that looks like. Another edge here coming out of Washington is Trice. He's coming in at 270 pounds. Yeah, he can play it in a very similar way that Hutch does. Um, yeah. So he can do a lot of things there, and I think he has a similar athletic set to what Hutch has. So maybe he could learn a lot from playing next to him. This one is interesting. Tumaloau, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correct. He's a guy that isn't necessarily like it doesn't necessarily jump off the page as a freak athlete. He just knows how to play football. Um, and he is a good athlete too. But he has the ability to go from slow to fast really quickly. He has a good feel for the game. So I think that this absolutely would be good. But you know, he might still be on the board as well. Then you have Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. He checks a lot of boxes. High football IQ, like it says. He's 6'2", 185 pounds. I would want him to be a little bit bigger. But and he's a guy who plays the ball well in the air, so that's always good too. But like I guess my question for all of you is, do you care about this stuff yet, or because the Lions are so good, you're not even thinking about the draft next year? There are so many positions on this team where guys are going to need to start getting paid. Aleem McNeil, you're going to have to pay soon. So do you bring in another defensive tackle? Right? Jonah Jackson, you're going to have to pay soon. And you're going to have to pay Sewell the year after that. So is Jonah Jackson a cap casualty of this team if you can draft another player in that position in the first, second, or even third round for a guard? Or do you just go with Vitae and Glasgow and hope that you can bring along a couple of other people? Like, there are so many questions on this. Do we go for a wide receiver because we did a swing and a miss? If it was a swing and a miss on Jameson Williams, I still think he's starting to get into the offense in a way. And I did a video on this where I think Jameson Williams is going to end up having a pretty solid back half of the year. And I think you really could see it this week against Chicago. But that's not what this article is about. There are so many things. What do we do on the back end? We have Cam Sutton locked up long term. What do we do with Jerry Jacobs? Like, do we try and draft another starting corner? Do we rehab Mosley and try and re-sign him on the cheap, a guy with 2 torn ACLs? Like, there are so many questions because now what we've gotten into is not just let's always draft the next superstar. Right now, what it is okay, well, we have players that we're going to have to pay. We can't always pay every player. So we need to draft in a way that can offset that. That's where I'm coming with this. That's why I think it's interesting. All right. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See ya on the next one. Go Lions.